So what we're going to look at tonight is from Nisargadatta I Am That. And there'll be a question and an answer from Nisargadatta. So it starts with a question. And the person is saying to him, the war is on. What is your attitude toward it? And Nisargadatta says, in some place or other, in some form or other, the war is always on. Was there a time when there was no war? Some say it is the will of God. Some say it is God's play. It's another way of saying that wars are inevitable and nobody is responsible. Question. But what is your own attitude? Answer. Why impose attitudes on me? I have no attitude to call my own. Question. Surely somebody is responsible for this horrible and senseless carnage. Why do people kill each other so readily? Nisargadatta. Search for the culprit within. The ideas of me and mine are the root of all conflict. Be free of them and you will be out of conflict. Question. What of it that I'm out of conflict? It will not affect the war. If I am the cause of war, I am ready to be destroyed. Yet it seems to reason that the disappearance of 1,000 like me will not stop wars. They did not start with my birth, nor will end with my death. I am not responsible. Who is? Nisargadatta. Strife and struggle are a part of existence. Why don't you inquire who is responsible for existence? Question. Why do you say that existence and conflict are inseparable? Can there be no existence without strife? I need not fight others to be myself. Nisargadatta. You fight others all the time for your survival as a separate body-mind, a particular name and form. To live, you must destroy. From the moment you were conceived, you started a war with your environment, a merciless war of mutual extermination until death sets you free. Question. My question remains unanswered. You are merely describing what I know, life and its sorrows. But who is responsible, you do not say. When I press you, you throw the blame on God or karma or on my own greed and fear, which merely invites further questions. Give me the final answer. Nisargadatta. The final answer is this: nothing is. All is a momentary appearance in the field of the universal consciousness. Continuity as name and form is a mental formation only, easy to dispel. Question. I am asking about the immediate, the transitory, the appearance. Here is a picture of a child killed by soldiers. It is a fact staring at you. You cannot deny it. Now, who is responsible for the death of the child? Nisargadatta. Nobody and everybody. The world is what it contains, and each thing affects all others. We all kill the child, and we all die with it. Every event has innumerable causes and produces numberless effects. It is useless to keep accounts. Nothing is traceable. Question. Your people speak of karma and retribution, Nisargadatta. It is merely a gross approximation. In reality, we are all creators and creatures of each other, causing and bearing each other's burden. Question. So the innocent suffers for the guilty, Nisargadatta. In our ignorance, we are innocent. In our actions, we are guilty. We sin without knowing and suffer without understanding. Our only hope to stop, to look, to understand, and to get out of the traps of memory. For memory feeds imagination, and imagination generates desire and fear. Well, why do I imagine at all? The light of consciousness passes through the film of memory and throws pictures on your brain. Because of the deficient and disordered state of your brain, what you perceive is distorted and colored by feelings of like and dislike. Make your thinking orderly and free from emotional overtones, and you will see people and things as they are, with clarity and charity. The witness of birth, life, and death is one and the same. It is the witness of pain and of love. For while the existence in limitation and separation is sorrowful, we love it. We love it and hate it at the same time. We fight, we kill, we destroy life and property, and yet we are affectionate and self-sacrificing. We nurse the child tenderly and often it too. Our life is full of contradictions, yet we cling to it. This clinging is at the root of everything. Still, it is entirely superficial. We hold on to something or somebody with all our might, and next moment we forget it, like a child that shapes its mud pies and abandons them lightheartedly. Touch them, it will scream with anger. Divert the child, and he forgets them. For our life is now, and the love of it is now. We love variety, the play of pain and pleasure. We are fascinated by contrasts. For this, we need the opposites and their apparent separation. We enjoy them for a time and then get tired and crave for the peace and the silence of pure being. The cosmic heart beats ceaselessly. I am the witness and the heart too. Question. I can see the picture, but who is the painter? Who is responsible for this terrible and yet adorable experience? The painter is in the picture. You separate the painter from the picture and you look for him. Don't separate and don't put false questions. Things are as they are, and nobody in particular is responsible. The idea of personal responsibility comes from the illusion of agency. Somebody must have done it. Somebody is responsible. Society as it is now, with its framework of laws and customs, is based on the idea of a separate and responsible personality. But this is not the only form a society can take. There are many other forms where the sense of separation is weak and responsibility diffused. Question. An individual with a weak sense of personality, is he nearer to self-realization? Take the case of a young child, says Nisargadatta. The sense of I am is not yet formed. The personality is rudimentary. The obstacles to self-knowledge are few, but the power and the clarity of awareness, its width and depth are lacking. In the course of years, awareness will grow stronger, but also the latent personality will emerge and obscure and complicate. Just as the harder the wood, the hotter the flame. So the stronger the personality, the brighter the light generated from its destruction. Well, have you no problems? Nisargadatta, I do have problems. I told you already. To exist with a name and form is painful, yet I love it. But you love everything. In existence, everything is contained. My very nature is to love. Even the painful is lovable. Question. It does not make it less painful. Why not remain in the unmanifested? It is the instinct of exploration, the love of the unknown that brings me into existence. It is in the nature of being to see adventure in becoming, as it is in the way of nature of becoming to seek peace in being. This alteration of being and becoming is inevitable, but my home is beyond. Is your home in God? To love and worship a God is also ignorance. My home is beyond all notions, however sublime. Question. Is there not a state of absolute perfection which does not decay? Nisargadatta, whatever has a beginning must have an end. In the timeless, all is perfect here and now. But shall we reach the timeless in due course? In due course, we shall come back to the starting point. Time cannot take us out of time, as space cannot take us out of space. All you get by waiting is more waiting. Absolute perfection is here and now, not in some future near or far. The secret is in action, here and now. It is your behavior that blinds you to yourself. Disregard whatever you think yourself to be and act as if you were absolutely perfect. Whatever your idea of perfection may be, all you need is courage. Where do I find such courage? In yourself, of course. Look within. Well, your grace will help. My grace is telling you now, look within. All you need, you have. Use it. Behave as best as you know. Do what you think you should. Don't be afraid of mistakes. You can always correct them. Only intentions matter. The shape things take is not within your power. The motives of your actions are. How can action born from imperfection lead to perfection? Nisargadatta. Action does not lead to perfection. Perfection is expressed in action. As long as you judge yourself by your expressions, give them utmost attention. When you realize your own behavior will be perfect spontaneously. Question: if I am timelessly perfect, then why was I born at all? What is the purpose of this life? Nisargadatta. It is like asking, what does it profit gold to be made into an ornament? The ornament gets the color and the beauty of gold. Gold is not enriched. Similarly, reality expressed in action makes the action meaningful and beautiful. What does the real gain through its expressions? Nisargadatta. What can it gain? Nothing whatsoever. But it is in the nature of love to express itself, to affirm itself, to overcome difficulties. Once you have understood that the world is love in action, you will look at it quite differently. But first, your attitude to suffering must change. Suffering is primarily a call for attention, which itself is a movement of love. More than happiness, love wants growth, the widening and deepening of consciousness and being. Whatever prevents becomes a cause of pain, and love does not shirk from pain. Sattva, the energy that works for righteousness and orderly development, must not be thwarted. When obstructed, it turns against itself and becomes destructive. Whenever love is withheld and suffering allowed to spread, war becomes inevitable. Our indifference to our neighbor's sorrow brings suffering to our door. Maybe in this whole chapter that I just read, this little paragraph that I did not read, maybe it sums it up. He says, my stand is clear. Produce to distribute. Feed before you eat. Give before you take. Think of others before you think of yourself. Only a selfless society based on sharing can be stable and happy.
Only a stable society. Is that what the last sentence was?
Yeah. Only a selfless society.
Selfless.
A selfless society based on sharing can be stable and happy. So, right, he's trying to say, who's really the doer? We're fundamentally all one. So there are many causes. There's not just a direct cause and effect. There are many causes. However, didn't he say in here, to the degree that the personality is very strong, which means it's strong in the me and mine. So the sense of a me is so strong that it becomes the center of each of our universe. And so unless it's someone very close to us, someone else's suffering far away from us doesn't seem to really touch us.
No, it's a survival mentality. The me-centered consciousness yields a survival mentality.
Right.
My self-interest against your self-interest.
And fundamentally, he says that's why there's war.
Right, of course, of course.
And we are full of contradictions. We love the child, and yet we orphan the child. We want peace, and yet we live with so many contradictions that causes so much conflict. We don't really know peace. And he seemed to say here, we are attracted to the opposites. But we've got to be able to go past that. Otherwise, we're just stuck.
I think what he's implying is perhaps that gaining an understanding of how this image of self is put together, that it's not something that we inherited, it's something that we acquire. And the environment that the entity grows up in, that more or less prejudices how he sees love, how he sees conflict, how he sees war. There are tribal civilizations and small nations that don't consider war dishonorable. They consider it honorable. I mean, mind-boggling during World War II. At some point, the Japanese mentality decided to use young men to drive bomb-laden planes into battleships to commit suicide, and this was honorable. So I think maybe if you can somehow get the awareness of how this thing works, then you see that all of our problems are self-created.
Oh, yes, sure.
Because they come from thought.
Right.
And thought comes from the banks of our consciousness, which is past experience. So whenever the thinking process starts to operate, it's operating from the past. And even worse than that, from my point of view, is that it's conditioned. It's been processed by condition as to how that memory is recorded. It's not recording what is, it's recording what it's been conditioned to see.
Right, right.
So I think maybe that's what's implied in quite a bit of it. And, the guy who was questioning, I got irritated with him. He was asking impossible questions. I mean, at some point you would think Nisargadatta would say, hey, wait a minute. I think you ought to look at the questions that you're asking. There are some questions that are not questions, they're statements.
Yeah.
But if you're
Above a question.
Well, I thought it was interesting how the person kept pressing him for an answer on who's responsible.
Yes, yes.
And
Who's responsible?
If you're coming from a me, yes, you think there's another entity that could be responsible.
Yep.
Ugo, it's Chip here under the lighter sign. I don't know why that came up, but
Hi, Chip.
hi guys.
Hey,
How's
Chip,
everyone?
how are you?
Hi, Chip.
Good.
Ugo, I have this one question for you. Thought comes from memory, right? That's how you see it.
That's how I see it, yes.
So how can you possibly think? In other words, where did the first thought come from?
Right off the top of my head, I can't answer the question.
Right, but that's something that you might want to think about. The thought comes from memory, and if thought only comes from memory, then how were we ever able to possibly think in the first place?
Well, I don't know. It might just be a process of recording. I mean, you've got a brain that has the ability to record. And as a child, when you're born, there isn't very much in that consciousness. So there isn't very much to deal with. But at some point, I guess after you get a certain amount of experiences and in an environment, you have people, you have mama and papa telling you how to be, how to do this, how to do that. I think that maybe the brain process, and this is just pure diarrhea from my point of view, because I don't know if this is true. I'm just speculating that it's a question of you have information in your memory, and there's a linkage that goes involved. And in conversation and in talking, as a child grows up, he learns how to he learns how to interpret what those memories are. He doesn't have any idea that it's from memory, that thought is from memory. As far as he's concerned.
Hold on a second.
But it all has to do
Hold
with
on.
language.
But just a second. I don't know that thought comes from memory. I think it can be equally valid to say that thought creates memory. And then that would answer Chip's question. Because yes, if then what was the first thought? From whence did the first thought come? I think thought creates memory.
Right. And also, if you think about it, Ugo, if thought comes from memory, that means that there's nothing new in the world, right? In other words, there's just only memories that are happening. We're recording these experiences. So there's nothing new that ever enters into the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because everything's coming from the past.
But I think that's one of the points that Krishnamurti makes, is that as long as you're operating from thought and from memory, nothing new ever comes. He wrote a book about it, trying to forget the known. What he was trying to get you to do is to forget what you know, because what you know is the thing that gets you in trouble. That's the thing that's created the me.
Right.
I'm a product of my thoughts. He's saying that if you can relax that, if at some point you can be aware, use present awareness, use whatever, all of that, choiceless awareness, so on and so forth, that there comes a point where you go beyond that. And I'm frustrated with JK because I can't find really a direct way of what he's talking about. What he's trying to tell you is that this going beyond thought, it has to happen. You can't describe it. It's like trying to describe present awareness. It's like trying to describe who you are as present awareness. So I mean, that's the best that I can do. How original thought comes out, I don't know. Quite frankly, that question has never really popped up, but it is. I'm thinking about it now. Thank you.
Well, maybe what's important here is really to have an understanding that this me that we believe so strongly to be, this me, is not independent of thought. We don't really know. You know, some people say we don't know where thought comes from. Others say it comes from memory. But I think the focus really needs to be on this me that is not independent of thought. and to be able to see in the moment. You know, memory, the past is memory. The future is anticipation.
It's time.
Reality is now. And that's where we want to be, because that's where we fundamentally live. So what is it that interferes with our being fully present now, without anticipation and without the memory dwelling in the past? What is it that prevents that? And are we aware when the past is working in the present or projecting itself into the future? I think this is what's so important, because bottom line, it's this belief in a separate, independent entity, cut off from everyone else, cut off from reality, cut off from pure non-conceptual awareness, that causes pain and suffering, not only for ourselves, but for everyone else. That's what he was saying in this chapter. So I think it's so important to bring us back into the now, the what is, the actual what is, because that's all that is the what is now, right? I mean, what was even an hour ago is not now. What's going to be an hour from now is not now. This is the only what is. And then, as Nisargadatta said, then we can really see another with clarity and charity, because there's no clouding over with our personal prejudices and biases and beliefs and opinions.
Well, I think you have to really consider what conditioning does as the image of self is being put together from I guess when you pop out of the womb. You're being conditioned.
Yes.
And that's the thing that stops you, that prevents you from seeing reality.
Yes. So, but what is the conditioning? To be able to see what the conditioning is.
Right.
Then that's
when present awareness comes in, right?
Well, that's
moment
right.
to moment.
So that's, if you're going to say anything's a practice, that's the practice, to be able to have a choiceless awareness of the conditioning as it occurs in the moment, as it appears in the moment. To be able to put a pin in it as it appears in the moment. To pull the plug on it, pull the plug out.
Yeah, because the difficulty, like we've mentioned before, and you've pointed it out to me many times, is that there's a certain aspect of this me and I that I need. All the functional memory in my life, I can't live without that. I would die.
That's right.
So
But that's
that
right.
aspect of it has to be retained. And I, at times, sit there and struggle to try to see that, wait a minute, I'm getting emotional about this thing. And yet I fully understand that when I'm doing certain types of activity, there's no emotions involved. 1 and 1 is 2. I don't have a problem with that. I divide 4 into 16, I'm going to get 4. Then I don't have a problem with that. And so on and so forth. But it's not that. It's like you pointed out to me, that it's the emotional part. It's the part that when we're interrelating with another human being, that interrelationship, that's where we have the problem.
That's
That's
right.
where all the problems come out.
That's right. The
The me-
reaction, the
The me
reaction.
and mine
Mhm.
Yeah.
mentality, the me and mine mentality.
Right. Right. So there's no problem when if you shine the spotlight, if the spotlight of choiceless awareness sees that, it's like that's what's doing the seeing, then that's it, right? The seeing is the
Is the
doing.
doing.
Yeah, that choiceless awareness, I kind of disagree with what you're saying, Hugo. I think that choiceless awareness, in choiceless awareness, there is no me.
That's right.
That's
And
right.
and so when you're saying, you need the me, it has to function. It's not really true that you need the me. I think what happens is we recognize that what we believe to be the me is actually supported by this underlying, let's call it choiceless awareness. And that the choiceless awareness is really, when you're saying the seeing is the doing, it's the choiceless awareness that does everything.
That's
It's
right.
not the me.
Correct.
We ignorantly, and I don't mean that as an insult,
Yeah.
Yeah,
but just as an observation, we ignorantly assign the doing to the me.
Correct.
But
That-
and we also, and again, I don't mean this as a judgment, we ignorantly assume that we have to have this me, but we don't.
That's right.
The me is not required. The me
That's
is an illusion. The me is because we're not understanding that this choiceless awareness is actually doing, it does everything and it does nothing.
right. Right.
Well, choiceless awareness, it's an action. It's an action. It's nothing, and so that when you're talking about choiceless awareness,
And an action.
you as an action,
No.
the I is not there. There is no I.
Choiceless awareness is not an action. It is. It's always there. It's always,
Okay, all right.
it's
okay,
always there.
all
It's
right.
always there. And if we allow it, I don't even know if that's the right way to phrase this. It's just always there. And now, because we know it's always there, when we begin to see the reaction, Ugo, what you were talking about in relationship, when a reaction arises, there's a seeing. And that's not, as Chip said, it's not a seeing by the me. Now, the me can, in like a half a second, come in and say, oh, that person deserved what I said to him.
Yep.
Or, then I'm back into the me. But in that very moment of pure seeing, that's choiceless awareness. And it's always there.
There's another point too about choiceless awareness, which is kind of cute. It's it's a JK thing. When you really see what is, there is no choice.
That's right. That's right.
Which means the I is not there. There's no
That's
choice.
right. That's right.
When you have a choice, that's being orchestrated by the me.
That's right. So if we see an action arise, that's, let's say, of I don't know, anger. With choiceless in choiceless awareness, there's just the seeing of it. And in that seeing of it without the me, it ends. It's not, it is just an illusion. It ends in the seeing of it. Now, the issue that precipitated that, the arising of anger, that can be looked at, and that could even be examined. However, it's looked at and examined without the bias of a me. And if we can do that, then we gain clarity of the situation in the relationship. So this is really so important and so fundamental to this whole practice or talk of non-duality. If we can get the realization that beyond this body-mind, there exists choiceless awareness, and we know it does. We have a direct experience of it because we're never not aware. Nothing can happen outside of awareness.
Well, we're never not aware, but we're so divorced from it because we're addicted to listening to the chattering ego in our head.
Oh,
But
yeah.
But if you sit quietly and for whatever brief seconds, if you sit quietly and there is no movement of thought, then for that brief time, you are choiceless awareness. You are non-conceptual consciousness.
You know, Jean Klein always told us consciousness functions.
Of course.
So there's no seer, a me, but there is seeing. There's no hearer, a me here, but there's hearing.
So the consciousness functions, and that's what Chip was referencing earlier.
Yes.
You don't need a me.
That's
Consciousness is going to function. The me gets in the way.
right. And we are the instrument through which consciousness functions.
Mhm.
But we have put in this me, and we hold on to it. Even though, as Nisargadatta said in this chapter, it causes us pain. And there's a part that loves it, even though it causes pain.
Mhm.
But look, I think fundamentally, everyone wants to be happy, wants to be at peace, wants to be able to love and to be loved. I don't know there's anyone that doesn't really want that unless they happen to be emotionally ill, mentally ill. But that's what we all want. And the question has to be, what prevents us from living that? And to see it in the moment, what prevents it?
That's such an interesting word. Everyone,
Mhm,
everyone,
mhm,
each one.
mhm.
So you have the non-duality, or not two, basically, right? But there's one. There's only one.
Only one.
Right. So there's only one. But then we have this expression of the one through all these different manifestations,
Correct.
right? So each one or everyone is the one.
Yes.
So we have one number 2, one number 3.
One.
And
That's
as we go through them, it's every one.
That's right.
So it's really it's so interesting that those words, how they're so
Yes.
telling, in
Yes.
terms of like this underlying reality, if you
That's
you
right.
hear it.
Right. Right. Yeah. So.
Well, that did get right to the heart of the matter,
What do you mean?
to the heart of disidentifying.
Yeah. Yeah.
not getting swept away by the thought pattern that's me.
That's right.
Mhm.
That's right. Okay.
All right, well, thanks for
Thank you.
joining
Yes,
us.
thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Till next time.
Absolutely.
Bye
Till
bye.
now.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Buonasera a tutti, eh?
Buonasera.
Ciao.